Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the program. It's the Jeff Gerstmann Show for October 31st, 2023. We're here. If you're watching live, we're a little late. Starting a little late. Boy, where to begin? I'll give you the short version of it because we've got a lot of news to get into here. Okay, so where does this begin? Is there a short version of this? So let's see here. My daughter, our new baby girl, has a breathing condition. It is the name of it is laryngomyelitis. And so on Friday, we went in. My wife took her, because it had labored breathing, took the baby in to get looked at, and they kind of freaked out. They were like, you should go see a specialist either right now or go to an emergency room because it's Friday and you don't want to wait the weekend on this. So anyway, they jumped through all the hoops and said, hey, this is what it is. It's they had to stick cameras into a baby. Which she did not like. And to find out, basically, you recover from it. You grow out of it, basically. It's a big, crazy, noisy breathing thing that looks nuts. You just go like, okay, that doesn't seem fine. They grow out of it. Generally, but it's a loud kind of squeaky breath. And, it's, terrifying. But again, the diagnosis was basically like, yeah, no, she'll grow out of this. You just got to keep feeding her and she's got to keep growing. So as she grows, her, all of her muscles will strengthen. And as all of her throat and everything else kind of finishes, or not finishes, but continues to grow, this eventually corrects itself, and maybe she'll make noise for a year tops, but really it's more like 3-4 months or whatever. Not a big, like a big deal, because when you see it you go, Jesus. But in the grand scheme of things, it's a thing that you just kind of like grow out of. So the doctor kind of says like, yeah, so, just keep feeding her and, she'll keep growing and all that sort of stuff. And then a final little thing of, by the way, it'd be really bad if she got sick, if she like caught a cold or something, because she's already having trouble breathing. And if she had a cold on top of that, then she probably wouldn't be able to feed. And that would be bad. So try to avoid her getting a cold. So that's Friday. Later Friday night, my oldest daughter starts coughing and sneezing, and by Saturday morning, she's got a fever. The perfect timing. So we've been scrambling. So it's like, okay, my wife took the baby and left. And so, so I've been with one sick kid and one not sick kid in an upstairs, downstairs style situation of trying to keep one from getting the other one sick, because like, okay, if we can just quarantine her long enough to get well, and if I don't catch it, then everyone can come home and life will resume as normal, and we'll just have to, and basically it's a 4-week window of like, in this 4 weeks, don't let the baby get sick. And so for the past few days, that's been the situation around here. As my wife has been staying with family. Her father flew into town to help me out and got here yesterday. And so he's out there with the kids right now. Yeah, we're getting through it. My daughter is much better this morning. My oldest is is much better this morning. Her fever's gone, all that sort of stuff. So, it's like, and then you're given, it's another situation where you're giving a kid a COVID test, and boy, they don't like that. It came back negative, so whatever. That just means it's wrong, right? No, I don't know. But it doesn't seem like the rest of us are sick. It's been a lot of hand sanitizer as I'm helping her. She stayed upstairs. She didn't want to. My son didn't want to stay downstairs. Also, in the middle of all this has been the craziest windstorm. Extremely high winds in the area. So it's been extremely dry, extremely windy, and extremely dusty. So everyone is coughing and sneezing. On top of that. So yeah, kind of an interesting fucking turn of events. My daughter, like I said, my daughter, the one who was sick, seems to be just about better. So, hopefully this will all be kind of getting back to normal sometime. Let's say Thursday, if I had to guess here. Because we got to make sure that the boy isn't getting sick and blah, blah. And then, so I'm waiting for everything to line up here so we can start the show. We're about an hour late. Again, sorry. It's been fucking crazy. I'm here with my son. My son, as we're hanging out here and I'm getting the show ready and putting on some music and stuff to all that stuff, he straight up falls asleep on the floor behind me. Which he never, ever does. And so I'm looking at him and going like, oh shit, like this is great. But also, is he in the process of getting sick? Is that why he's like suddenly extremely exhausted and tired? What the fuck is going on? So it's been a real roller coaster over here for the past handful of days. He woke up and I said, get the hell out of here, kid. I got work to do. And here we are. So that's, that's been another thing that's kind of smacked a crimp into my week of trying to get things done. I have played some Alan Wake. I want to play a lot more Alan Wake. That's kind of where I'm at with it. I have been trying to like sneak in some Alan Wake. Like I was like last night, I was like, I could play some Alan Wake, and I was like, oh, or I could go to bed because I'm a mess. And so I went to bed. Alan Wake seems real special. It seems real outstanding. I'm not deep enough into it to necessarily tell you definitively about that sort of stuff, but I have been itching to play Alan Wake. I'm getting behind on stuff. I was itching to play Spider-Man 2, and I have been trying to get back to that when I can, and then there's just been all this other stuff coming in. That's October. That's November. Like Call of Duty is out in a couple of days, or at least the campaign is, right? Now that they're spreading that out. Like we are at that time of the year when Call of Duty comes out. So we're in it. Super Mario Brothers Wonder is out. And I haven't quite finished that yet, but man, that has been, it's one of those nice situations where it's like, it's nice that the Switch is a portable machine because I can play it in bed and get a couple levels in, and it's not a big to do and whatever. So, I am still really loving that game. Super Mario Wonder is fantastic. Alan Wake is everything I want out of like that type of mystery game so far. Like I've said it before. I really don't care about survival horror, the Resident Evil games, your Silent Hills and whatnot. I just, whether it's the way the games control or just, they all make weird choices about inventory screens or this or that. There's always something that makes me play it and go, God, I hate this. The Resident Evil 4 remake I thought was pretty good for what it is and everything, but like the story, the characters, like it's just I don't really care about any of it. Zombies zombies, really? It's just not really my thing in a general sense, So when they say, hey, we're making a new Alan Wake, and by the way, it's going to be like a survival horror kind of thing, you're like, oh, okay. I think they've done well with the action in that game. It's not necessarily why I'm there. I'm there because I love this. I really am wrapped up in the story they're telling. I am really wrapped up in the aesthetic of that game. I think that the universe, like as Remedy has started to pull together their games into a universe, and you saw the Alan Wake stuff dropping into Control and Vice, just like all the little bits and pieces that they're sort of stringing together into their games. I think that studio is just doing fantastic work. Just on fire, just really, man, holy smokes, with just how they're putting games together, and how they're telling stories. I've seen some stuff go like, oh, I think the story in Alan Wake is really, rote, or like the way Alan Wake writes is bad has been a thing that's been going around, and I agree to an extent. And also, I kind of love the idea that you're inside of a story written by Alan Wake, and it's bad, and he's not a great writer. Alan Wake, not a great writer, and that's I like that. That's a hard line to pull, and I understand why some people would be on the other side of it in some of this stuff, because if you're doing things that are kind of deliberately cheesy, deliberately bad, sometimes it sometimes it's not going to really work out, right? Hey, so I think it's tremendous so far. I keep thinking about starting over on PC. I have access to the PC. I installed the PC version, but have not run it yet. I've been looking at it on a PlayStation 5. I think it's run pretty well there. They have a patch out. Which I don't know. I read the notes yesterday, but it escapes me. It was nothing like dramatic. It was nothing like, hey, sometimes player one drops combos. It was nothing crazy. But yeah, I hear the Xbox version is quite good as well. The Series X version or whatever. But so. Yeah, audio issues on Xbox. That's what it was. Yeah, but in terms of how it runs, I heard it was running well, at least. Audio issues notwithstanding, I suppose. Yeah, so it's really been me kind of just bite-size sampling a handful of games here and there, and I need to kind of just settle down. And Alan Wake is really, I think, the game that has shot its way to the top of the list. I'm sure when the Call of Duty campaign launches in a couple of days here, I'll want to run my way through that. That never takes that long. But I do want to see what they've done, because I feel like they have not really done a great job of illustrating the stuff they're talking about with the Call of Duty campaign in terms of like the open combat zone or whatever they're, Sonic Frontiers, but with rifles or, whatever it is they're making. I don't feel like they've done an amazing job of conveying what the campaign is, and that kind of makes me, and there's probably a trailer somewhere I didn't see or something. I know they just put out a PC trailer or whatever. But the concern is that they just took existing multiplayer locations, whether it's the Warzone map or something like that, and they just have large swaths of the game that take place there and have these really generic missions that are set inside of a multiplayer space, which is really, that doesn't sound awesome. Maybe it'll work out. It doesn't sound awesome, but we'll have to see where that nets out. I'm interested in checking that out. And yeah, that's like 2 days away or something like that. Is anyone playing Diablo 4? The new season launched. I got an email from Blizzard that said, here's the demons you slew in season 1. And it was like one of those slightly personalized emails where they drop a bunch of data in it and they say how many things you did in season 1. It was like, you played for 7 hours. You socketed 21 malignant hearts. I'm like, these are depressingly low numbers. You should probably like have a cutoff where you just don't send this part of the email. If a player engaged with season 1 in a way that makes it clear to you that they did not want to keep going with season 1, then perhaps the context or the structure of the email could change. I have it installed because it came out on Steam, and it came out on Steam at the same time that I installed a 4 terabyte SSD as my D drive, upgrading from a 2 terabyte, which was consistently full because games are big. And so with suddenly all that extra space, I was like, well, damn right, I'm going to reinstall Diablo 4. And what else? I went, I've got, let's see here. I installed Disney's Dreamlight Valley, which I'm going to check out and see if my oldest, my daughter, will be interested in that. I've got Cyberpunk installed. Like I might play more of that DLC someday. I reinstalled AEW Fight Forever because I don't know. I don't know why. Remnant 2, something I messed with a little bit, but I reinstalled Destiny 2. That was the thing. It was huge, and I was like, I need to uninstall this because the last time I played it, I had a pretty bad time with it, and I was like, I don't like the structure of this anymore. So I reinstalled Destiny 2 a week or two ago or whatever it was, and have not launched it yet. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. Speaking of studios experiencing layoffs, I also reinstalled Pinball FX. Because there's a My Little Pony table in that my daughter occasionally likes to play, but I couldn't keep it installed because it's massive. So now that's reinstalled. I reinstalled Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the reboot of the first reboot of the whatever it was, and because that has a map called Rust in it that is one of the best maps that's in the one that's about to come out. They just put it in a handful of years ago. They just dusted it off a handful of years ago. It's not that old of a map. They remake maps and then they remake maps and then they, is Karen Tan gonna be in this one again? Not really sold on this whole Modern Warfare 2. For starters, it's Modern Warfare 3, and your pitch is we're remaking all the maps from original Modern Warfare 2. Already the numbers are wrong. Not that I want you to, like, remake the maps from Modern Warfare 3, but, I don't know. It's a whole weird thing. We'll see. I mean, outside of Steam, I'm looking at Steam, which is why I also reinstalled Starfield, which I had uninstalled. I don't know why I reinstalled. Anyway, I also reinstalled Halo Infinite and played a couple of matches of that. It feels good. I don't know. I feel like the core multiplayer in Halo Infinite has always felt good, but I will say that I was able to fire it up and launch it, and it just worked. And it felt like every time they started a new season in Halo Infinite, there was something that was like fucked about it, and I was like, okay, well, I'll wait a week for the matchmaking to unbreak itself, or wait for the whatever it is. I got in and played a match or two of that. The cool thing they finally did there, which is one of those things they should have done from the get-go, you would get armor in that game. It was cosmetics. You could buy it, you could unlock it on their battle passes or whatever, and you would get, big chest piece armor that you could equip. But then helmets and wrist pieces and all the other attachments, helmets being the big one, were specific to that armor. So if you had a sick helmet that only worked on the base level free-to-play default armor, you could not take your sick helmet onto your new sick chest piece. Which is dumb. They fixed that, and now you can pretty much equip any helmet onto any armor There's still, the rest of the pieces of armor are specific to that armor set or whatever. But they have decoupled helmets from chests, I guess. And that was cool because I was able to there was all this stuff that I thought about using, but all the helmets that came with the new armor were garbage. And then I realized I had way more helmets than I thought I did. And so I spent time dressing up my Halo, my Master Chief or whatever, and then played some. And I was like, this is good. It still feels good. It probably always needs more maps, but there's a lot of, you're seeing a lot of articles and you're seeing a lot of talk around the game having to kind of turn the corner and stuff. From what I played of it, I was like, this still seems like Halo 5. It just works and the armor change is nice. So cool. We'll see, if they kind of stay the course on it or if people get back into it or how many more maps have been added and whatever else. I want to spend more time with it. I'll say that much. So, that's cool. Sometimes I think about replaying the campaign because I had such a good time with the campaign. But alas, there's a lot of other games to play right now. Like DreamWorks Trolls Remix Rescue, which I have installed currently. Might have to stream some of that one of these days. It's a winner. It's a winner. Anyway, why don't we move on and get into some news here? Bungie has laid off some number of people yesterday. They made cuts across a number of different departments, as I understand it. I saw people lamenting cuts in community. Some other departments, visual design, whatever else. They have not gotten specific. They did acknowledge that they laid off some number of employees publicly. Pete Parsons, the CEO of the studio, got out there and said, "Hey, it's a very sad day." I'm paraphrasing, but it's a very, very sad day for the studio. Bloomberg also has a story in addition to the layoffs, saying that they have delayed games. The Final Shape, which is Destiny's next expansion, probably the most important expansion they will ship in the compared to the previous stuff, this seems like it is much more important because their story is pointing to the tip of something, some kind of final shape of some kind. It's a trapezoid. It sounds like that is getting pushed from February into June. And also that Marathon has slipped into 2025. So we've got delays on the Bungie products we know about. I think that's all of them, right? There was, and also they are making some cuts. The Final Shape delay pushes it out of Sony's current fiscal year, as Bloomberg notes. Maybe that's better for them. Maybe that's worse. I honestly don't know. How would we know? Usually not great when you're pushing out of a fiscal year into another one. But also, this is, remember, this Bungie is a Sony-owned studio, and so this kind of follows the path of, hey, we've seen some cuts along Media Molecule, the Visual Arts studio, and so there's been some trimming across a fair amount of or some amount of the Sony organizations, and we'll see how all that goes. I don't believe that they have publicly confirmed delays on the Destiny expansion yet. I kind of went looking for that last night, and what I found was the director of Destiny 2 posting a video saying, hey, our last, the last communication we had about our updates and our sort of like wasn't right. We've been so focused on the final shape that our most recent update was bad, and kind of apologizing for that and apologizing for the state of PvP in Destiny 2, the Crucible as it's known, kind of saying, hey, we've been putting out one new map a year and that's not enough, which yeah. And so it sounds like that they are moving to, well, who knows, on the other end of these layoffs, who knows, but the upshot of what he was saying was that, hey, instead we're going to work on a full-on free map pack for the PvP mode, and we will put that out, and you'll have kind of a cluster of new maps dropping at some point. And I don't know, the PvP mode, I think the maps situation certainly didn't help, but there was just a lot of things like that just pushed me further and further away from that PvP. So yeah, and then of course they got hit with layoffs a couple of days after that, so who knows what the state of things will be on the other side of that. Best wishes to everyone impacted by the news. It's it's fucking terrible. It's a drumbeat. It's happening so consistently across so many different studios, and I don't know when it ends. The layoff situation is really I'd say alarming, but that's not the right word. It's a lot of studios. This seems like a lot of studios, and so this goes hand in hand, I think, with a lot of the layoffs are happening in the same year that we're seeing some people say, boy, oh boy, this is one of the best years in gaming. And we're coming off of these pandemic years, and so it's a really confusing set of numbers out there. And so I think what we're seeing is like all of these games are shipping this year. All of them took too long to develop. A lot of them were developed by these larger pandemic-sized teams. And the pace at which gaming is growing is not the same as it was when everyone was home, which, again, seems like one of those no-brainer kind of things. But a lot of people expanded a lot early in the pandemic, and people like, our numbers are way up. We've got to hire people on. And some of it was like, hey, we're going to work from home, and that's weird. So efficiency is strange. We need to hire up. But some studios took advantage of the financial situation, as well as, with interest rates and whatever else. And they were like, hey, man, this is kind of like free money right now. We should expand. We should acquire. We should blah, blah. Like there was a lot of stuff that people were doing based on where numbers were in this, hopefully, once in a lifetime situation. And then, the world kind of moved on. People went back to work one way or the other, and so they weren't around as much. Gaming time went down. People started going out and doing other things with their time. And so suddenly it was like, oh wait, we can't just grow forever. It was just, again, it just seems dumb. But I don't know. It just seems like one of those very short-sighted things. It's easy to say that in retrospect now that we're, going through all of these layoffs and everything else. But it seemed very easy to predict that slow playing the pandemic and saying, I don't think this is going to stick around the way it is, seems like it should have been some kind of no-brainer. But instead, everyone just ran for what they perceived to be the money, and then when things, whatever. It's, yeah. In other news, Atari has announced that they plan to acquire Digital Eclipse, in what gamesindustry.biz is calling a $20 million deal. Expected to close in the next few days. Atari is paying an initial consideration of $6.5 million, of which $4 million is in cash and $2.5 million is in newly issued ordinary shares, with potential performance-based earnouts of up to $13.5 million payable in cash over the next 10 years. Of course, Digital Eclipse is the studio that made Atari 50, and also they made The Making of Karateka, which I think is one of the best things to come out this calendar year while we're talking about the year in games. They're also working on that early access Wizardry remake. And, you know, they have kind of more in the pipeline. This is something that I think it makes a lot of sense when you look at Atari and what Atari is trying to accomplish. I don't know how to feel about Atari, I guess, is where I'm still at with these things. The Atari name has meant jack shit for a lot of years. And I know that they are trying to turn it around. They are trying to, you know, but they're still, I don't know if they're still involved in this NFT stuff, but they tried to spin that off into a separate thing. They have a newish, I guess he's still technically new, a newish CEO in there. Wade Rosen, I believe is his name, that people are speaking highly of in a he gets it kind of way, which I think is the nicest thing anyone ever says about a CEO. He really gets it. And so the hope is that they're figuring... Atari is weird. I mean, Atari is still weird. Like, Atari is making a new Atari 2600 that has HDMI out, and that's like 2600 Plus, I think they're calling it. They're selling new Atari 2600 cartridges, and they bought Night Dive Studios. They bought Moby Games. They bought Atari Age, the forum that was devoted to spreading prototype ROMs of unreleased Atari games. They just bought it. And Atari Age, also one of the hives of Intellivision Amico discussion. But yeah, anyway, so Atari has bought a bunch of stuff. And I hope it's a good, you never know with this stuff. Is this a good acquisition? Is this a congratulations acquisition in the, hey man, you nailed it? Or is this a congratulations acquisition in a, you get to keep going sort of way? Digital Eclipse had just raised a bunch of money. They had raised money on Fig. They point out here, they had a FAQ that they posted about this. That the people who invested in the company via Fig, none of that stuff changes. This doesn't, meaning that they don't get part of this payout that Digital Eclipse just got. They will instead still be investing in the future of the company and still get earnouts based on whatever the terms of the agreement on the Fig investors end up being. The upshot of this is hopefully, the Digital Eclipse gets more resources to do the things they do. I think what they're doing is very important, and I hope they get to keep doing it for a good long time. There are very smart people over there, and hopefully those smart people are the people that are on those performance-based earnouts for the next 10 years. Hopefully they're all locked in, shackled to a desk by $13.5 million payable in cash, distributed amongst them. So because I want to see what those folks get up to, and hopefully they will have the opportunity to get up to it and all that sort of stuff. So that was that one caught me off guard because they just raised all this money. I thought that maybe they, I wouldn't have thought that they would have sold it, but I don't know. Maybe Atari makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I don't know. The Atari thing is interesting. Whatever it is they're doing over there, they're kind of yeah, I don't know. The acquisitions they've made, the products they're putting into the marketplace. Mr. Run and Jump was one of theirs, and that's not a bad game. I think some of the remakes they're doing, these recharged games that they're putting out, are not very good. But they've got heart, I guess, is what it seems like from the outside looking in. So I don't know. Maybe they'll make more speaker hats or something. Nintendo has pissed everyone off all over again. Unless you like to laugh at Smash Brothers players, in which case it's good eating time. No. Nintendo has issued a bunch of very restrictive guidelines for people who want to run tournaments around their video games. Of course, the only game that they have that is getting a wide swath of tournaments is Super Smash Brothers. Kotaku has this story, but I kind of went through and looked at the guidelines they posted as well. You need to get Nintendo's approval if you have more than 200 entrants at your tournament. You cannot charge, this is some of the Japanese stuff, but you cannot charge more than 2,000 yen, which is like $13 for entrance fees. You cannot have cash prizes. You cannot use Nintendo's trademarks in the name of your tournament. A lot of stuff that, would be common sense trademark stuff. The organizer must post the following notices on site and on tournament websites and other promotional materials. Nintendo is not a sponsor of or affiliated with this event. Terms for participating in and viewing community tournaments using Nintendo games accompanied with the following URL. And it's a link to the page that they have put up. Organizers will not permit gambling or the use of alcohol or drugs at community tournaments. So no booze at your tournament. What are we even doing? Nintendo games may not be used for community tournaments that have sponsors or that advertise or promote any entity, product, or services. It may not promote any campaigns or initiatives based on personal or organized opinions, ideologies, or beliefs, which is like the vaguest, but also weirdly most fucked up framework, I guess. Yeah. Must not involve anything that Nintendo deems inappropriate, which is as vague as it gets. They have also said that you cannot use modified video games. This seems like a hard stance taken against the Project M's of the world, which Nintendo is, Nintendo has not been happy about the idea of modified versions of Smash Brothers out there being played on major stages and so on and so forth. Games with online play must use the online gameplay services and or servers officially provided by Nintendo. So if you are trying to play through, I guess that even would include Parsec, but also if you're doing any kind of weird emulator rollback, blah, 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 to play your stuff, they're saying you can't do that. The total value of cash prizing a single organizer can offer through community tournaments in a 12-month period must be no more than $10,000. No prize may exceed a market value of $5,000 in total or include the prohibited items outlined in Q17 below. Okay. They've got a list of what they consider to be prohibited items. Items that are illegal, offensive, or inappropriate, illegal products or services, or those that infringe on the rights of third parties, items that are discriminatory or misleading, gambling-like services, information products such as virtual currency and data. If you are running a tournament and the prize is data, Nintendo is not down. I gotta win that data. Political activities or advertising or specific belief systems or ideologies. Any items or services that may prevent the normal operation of our products or services or impair their safety. alcohol, cigarettes, and other age-restricted items. Man, I was going to run my You Win a Case of Newport's Smash Brothers tournament. My Urban Champion winner gets a handle of Everclear is definitely jeopardized now. Nintendo products that have not launched in the region where the community tournament is taking place. That's another big repeated thing, is they don't want you to play games that are not released in the territory where the tournament is taking place. And it's a lot. They will, I guess, grant licenses in some situations as well. It's a lot. There's also, let's see, there was something in here about controllers, I believe. Let me look and see if I can find it. I guess, yeah, I cannot find it, but my understanding is that there was something in here that was also saying that you cannot use modified equipment, like whether that's I imagine that's a kickbox or whatever. So there's been like accessibility concerns raised by this as well, by some of these restrictions. They're like, hey, you're like eliminating a wide swath of players from this with your weird restrictions. It's a running theme this week, the fucked up controller restriction thing. We'll talk about Xbox's pathway into that here in a minute. Basically, I don't know. This sounds like that they're really not leaving a lot of room for people to run tournaments unless they're just like, hey, this one we're running for the goodness of our own hearts. We're taking on all the costs. No one has to pay anything, and like there's just a lot of stuff like that they're implying that, hey, these are illegal is kind of the framework they're maybe trying to set up here. And that's funky. I think it's legal. There's some stuff where, yeah, if you call your thing we're having a Super Smash Brothers Ultimate Tournament, the official, or misrepresenting or creating a situation where people might mistake it for an official tournament. I understand why Nintendo would be protective of their copyright stuff, but this stuff is restrictive, and they've tried to do this before and they ended up walking it back. Last time there was a lot of talk about a company called Panda, not Panda Energy, right? That's the TNA, that's the Dixie Carter company, but it's Panda Global. That's what it is. And that they were securing an official license to run all official Smash tournaments, and that they were basically cutting out everyone in the process because they were paying for these rights. And so it sounds like that they've been, some people were trying to tie this to them. So I'm not sure where that stands, if Panda's business relationship is behind these restrictions coming out all over again. But Panda was basically, Panda had a pitch deck going around that was pretty fucked up, and a lot of this stuff is not that dissimilar to the stuff that Panda was looking for at the time, which I guess, yeah, they kind of went away, right? Because they ended up being super shitty, or like the guy running Panda ended up being a dirtbag or what, I forget what it was. Hey guys, someone involved in the Smash Brothers scene ended up being a dirtbag. Speaking of which, Hungry Box, according to Kotaku, is basically saying fuck it, and he will keep running his tournament. He says, I'm running Coinbox. I'm going to keep running it in January, February, March. I will run it every fucking week until I receive word from them directly. I'm not going to stop out of fear. They have to come to me directly with the document. Until then, I'm calling their fucking bluff, is a quote from a live stream he had, according to Kotaku.com. But at the end of the day, hey, this is unsurprising when you think about Nintendo's lack of support for the tournament scene. which I think is it's their right. Like if they don't want to support it, they don't have to. Of course, I think that a lot of this stuff is overly restrictive in terms of like things when it comes to representing their IP one way or the other. I understand a situation where you're like, hey, don't put a big picture of Mario on the front of your building to say, hey, you're running a tournament or hey, you're running this. But to say, oh, well, you can't run it with a modified thing and you can't do this or that. It's like, well, fuck off. Like what, hey, there is something of a kind of come and get me sort of thing with that. I don't know. This then I think some of this stuff eventually backs into a lot of the discussion. Remember when Epic was a part of this at one point, which is unsurprising. I think the more Tim Sweeney talks over these last few years, you start to understand why maybe Epic was one of the companies that was like, maybe we should get a cut of people's streaming revenue. And some of the conversation around like, you're streaming our games, this is our IP, you should be paying us for the right to that, as opposed to, which I think is the more enlightened and probably more correct view, is you are streaming our games in ways that helps build excitement around them and probably sells copies and probably does this and that. It's a little more intangible, but it's also seems like the right thing to do, and also the quiet thing to do, as opposed to just like upending. Basically, it's like when the music industry tried to go after individual downloaders instead of the more entrenched piracy problem. Which, hey, good on the music industry for stopping that, right? They really buttoned that up. And the music industry's doing great now. Everyone's happy. Everyone's making a ton of money over there in music, right? It's going awesome. So I think this is a fucking terrible move from Nintendo but also if they don't see these games as games that should have a ton of tournaments running for them in the first place, and Nintendo was never really viewed there, like coming out of Japan, it doesn't really seem like that they care about any of this stuff over there. So a lot of this stuff, and it seemed like this last time, it seemed like a lot of stuff of like, all right, the Japanese office has some things to say that don't really line up with the way the world works, but we're going to have to put it out in English anyway, because that's just how this is going. And it just, it's another one of those boneheaded moves, another one of those weirdly overly restrictive. I think they could have put out a statement and saying like, hey, don't use our IP, and also please don't give people like pornography as a prize for your Nintendo tournament. Like, hey, you are the best Mario Kart 8 player in the building. Here's a stack of Hustlers, which is another brilliant tournament idea I'm having right here. Like, man, fuck. Nintendo, why are you ruining me here? But it's a I don't know. It seems like a shit show, but again, Nintendo has shown time and time again that they are not interested in the Smash Brothers tournament scene or in any kind of open tournament scene. So I guess like this just kind of is them quadrupling down on a position that you have known that they have held for a good long time. It's them getting their acts together and spelling it out instead of it being this weird, ambiguous, like, oh, Smash Brothers is not showing up at Evo, right? All right, I guess we can't, or hey, we're trying to clean up our act over here, so no more Project M tournaments because we want Nintendo to get on board, and oh, they didn't get on board. Oh, well, shit. Well, also, we're not bringing that back either. There's like weird dismantling of that stuff. Yeah, so I don't really know what to make of it. I think that a lot of as much as I do like fighting game tournaments, there is something about the Smash Brothers scene that just rubs me the wrong way in 9 or 10 different ways. So, but that said, I don't think they deserve this. Speaking of Smash Brothers, director of the series, Masahiro Sakurai, he's got a YouTube channel now. He's like semi-retired, he says, and he's just kind of like, he's just YouTubing about game development. It's fascinating stuff if you want to, go through the subtitles and all that sort of stuff. It's been a fascinating channel. There's an interesting, I just thought it was an interesting kind of talking point here. Video Games Chronicle pulled this, that Sakurai basically said, this, I guess it comes from Nintendo Life originally. They watched the video. They watched the entire video. As for what comes next for the Smash Brothers series, even I'm not sure. I feel like we truly succeeded in making people happy with this game, but now that Smash Brothers has grown to be monstrous in size, I'd say it's difficult to imagine an increase of this magnitude happening again. Every time we manage to make a game that I had previously thought impossible, so I can't say for certain there won't be another, but I do think it would be difficult to push it any further than we have. Which, yeah, of course, right? I mean, the last one has so many characters in it. It is ultimate in nature, right? It is, they're all here, as they say. And they have bolted so much stuff onto that thing over the years. And what do you do next? What do you do next? I think it's, it's beyond, like, you don't just go like, hey, we're adding 4 more characters, or hey, we're putting it out on the next platform, and it's just, what they did with Mario Kart last time. It's just, here's the same game again, but we're adding 8 more characters and 8 more fucking amiibo, I guess. So they need to throw it all away. What if they threw it all away and they said, we've got a new game. It's called Super Smash Brothers 2. And they just like fucking started from scratch. Like made it a whole, like, we've got 12 characters in this thing. And we've rendered them all in a brutally realistic style. I don't know. A Nintendo fighting game is a fantastic idea. I wish that they would make one. But now I can't even download weird Mugen characters and run them at tournaments anymore because Nintendo's going to come and get me. Scorpion versus Mario and whatnot. So, I don't know. I just got me thinking, like, yeah, it'd be cool if they just did a whole reboot, a whole different style. It would never, I don't think Smash Brothers players would be happy if they turned it into a more traditional fighting game. So I'm not necessarily saying that, but also the like platform fighter thing is so well worn at this point. What do you do if you're going to make another one of those? Like so many competitors have come out and floundered, and there's fun indie games around the edges that people are, your Rivals of Aether and such that people seem to really enjoy, but that's obviously a totally different scale. But yeah, I don't know. It just it seems like that is crazy, and that the obvious answer is we made another one. But I think if you're making another one, you have to take a bunch of characters out of it at this point, right? Because I think if they're just like, we're starting with all of the characters that were in the last game, and here's another 3 rounds of DLC, like it's fucking bananas. It's already nonsense, the idea of learning all these matchups and all this. You're like, fuck that. Who's going to do that? Lunatics. They're part of the problem. These are the people we have to stop. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting concept like that. Lock that up in your mind prison for a while and think about it. Of just like, what the fuck do you do with Smash Brothers? that like would and maybe they don't care about this, right? But you know, because the tournament stuff makes it seem like they sure don't. Like, how do you make a game that satisfies the more diehard aspects of the Smash Brothers fan base while also still making something that might newly appeal to a larger audience? Not that Smash Brothers is not selling it's selling great. It's doing fine, right? But is there an opportunity to make it even bigger, even more mainstream, even this and that? Because they don't care about those hardcore players at all. That's not Nintendo's style. Why would they? They're like, we're making games for families over here, and you people need to fucking take a shower and leave your box of crabs at home, you fucking weirdos. Like, stop it. Anyway. The PlayStation 5, the new PlayStation 5 is coming out in, I guess, a couple of weeks here. It looks like they're a bundle with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 has shown up, and pictures of that have shown up. And pictures of the box mention that you will need to connect to the internet once to, I guess the wording here is... Oh, let's see if I can find the exact wording. But basically, the upshot of it is you will need to connect to the internet to use the detachable Blu-ray drive. And that has caused some amount of uproar. Yeah, internet connection required to pair disk drive and console is the specific wording. So I think I don't know a ton about PlayStation's security stuff. I'm not like extremely well read on it, but I have read up on how the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 3 handles their business when it comes to how the drives work. And the drives, we talked a little bit about this when they announced it, but like the drives themselves are paired to the console. That's been done for at least since the PlayStation 3. Where if you took two PlayStation 3s and tried to swap the Blu-ray drives between them, they would not have the right keys. It would not work. Is the upshot of that. And so I think the PlayStation 4 ends up being in the same boat of that sort of stuff, which is terrible for repairs. You know, if you're trying to fix a console and you're like, well, I've got a parts only PlayStation 3 over here, I can yank the drive out of that. You can't just put it in there without doing a bunch of other shit too. PlayStation 4, I'm pretty sure, is in the exact same boat. PlayStation 5, I assume, is in the same boat. So now understand that every PlayStation 5 is now a digital edition. Some of them just come with the drive. And you could buy a drive separately. So that means that they have to accommodate this idea of a blank drive being attached to a console, and they need to pair it to the motherboard because that's how a lot of their disk security and a lot of their anti-piracy stuff has worked. Which I should point out did not stop piracy on the PlayStation 3. Did not stop piracy on the PlayStation 4, and there are limited examples of some things happening on the PlayStation 5. So, great. The unfortunate part here is that, hey, if you get a hold of this stuff 50 years later, 40 years later, will the activation server still be up? Will you be able to attach a new drive and pair it so you can still use, the whole point of discs, the whole point of physical media and preservation and blah, blah, blah is all about this idea of, okay, we need a self-contained solution for putting a disc into a drive and playing a game. I might argue that ship has sailed because we're not even getting the full game on a lot of discs anymore anyway because of the way patches work and what have you. Look at the, I mean, that even diskless systems like the Nintendo Switch went through that process of like what shipped on that cartridge, the card, whatever you want to call it, the great tasting Switch cartridges, was a shell of the full game that you then had to download a massive patch to activate modes, to add characters to the game. Like the base version of Mortal Kombat 1 is not the thing you're paying for. So if you're in a situation where you're just going to plug that in and never connect to the internet, you're going to be like, okay, well, I guess I can sort of play this. I thought Ashra was supposed to be in this game. No? All right, well, what do I know? And so, that ship has already sailed. We live in a world where the internet is a thing. And the preservation argument comes up when you start to think, well, what happens if we were to live in a world where the internet was no longer a thing? What do we do then? The answer is piracy. The answer is pirates solve these problems, and make all of this stuff usable for longer than it would be otherwise, I suppose. I don't know. It's so I think that's probably the situation, is like Sony doesn't, when they're making this stuff, they're thinking about it from the perspective of we need to simplify our production lines, so we want to make only one PlayStation 5, and so what if we had the drive to be detachable? And then someday we just won't sell the drive anymore anyway, because who cares? We'll have made the transition over to digital only, and whatever. That's the future that we're currently heading towards. So whatever. And like, I get it. Like, customer sentiment, like, digital sales are only picking up physical sales. I don't have I did not put a disc into my PlayStation 5 until I managed to get a hold of a retail copy of Mortal Kombat 1 a day before I got a digital download code for Mortal Kombat 1. That was the first disc to go into my PS5. And so I get it, from that perspective, the simplicity of it, the idea of digital games. We've been doing it on the PC now for generations. It's the way of things. Also the way of things is servers getting shut down, the Wii U, the 3DS, we're still shutting down old platforms. And that needs to stop. We need to get to a point where it's like, okay, these consoles were now made in an era when we understood that these things need to be resilient and they need to last. And so we're going to stop turning things off. I would have thought we would have made it there by now. We have not. And so these things are still concerning. It's not great that you have to do this to pair the drive. But Sony's just looking at it from a how do we achieve the level of security that we currently have, that we currently need? How do we achieve that in a world where we have a detachable disk drive? Here's how. We have it ping a server. It returns some encryption key. It flashes that to the drive's firmware, and then you never think about it again. I wonder if there'll be a way to wipe that. Will you be able to take a drive off of your PS5 and put it onto another one? Because theoretically, the answer would be no. Once it's paired, it's paired. Will there be a way to wipe that key and use it? Will you be able to sell your used Blu-ray drive to someone and go, oh, I don't need this anymore? Or will they just get it, plug it in, and it'll be like, this ain't yours, son? What the fuck you doing? And so that's a concern. Yeah, it's a mess. It defeats the purpose. I think that when a lot of people think about the purpose of that physical drive, this defeats the purpose of having one. The idea that you need to have connection to the internet to make it work and whatever else. I wonder if the prepackaged drives will still need to connect to the internet. I bet they will. I bet they won't factory flash them. It'll probably be a situation where you probably still need to, well, I guess that's the thing this message is on a console that comes with the drive. So presumably that means they're coming from the factory unflashed or unpaired, I guess I should say. And you will still have to pair them. Not awesome. Understandable, I think, when we think about the concerns of a hardware manufacturer and what they actually care about in these sorts of scenarios. It has nothing to do with what are we going to do 40 years down the line. They don't give a shit. They don't fucking care. They're not here going, what about preservation? Like, you know, that's like a small department of a company that is going like, well, what about preservation? How do we care about this stuff? And they're like, look, man, this stuff is architected this way. We're not going to rebuild it. We're going to keep it the way it is. We're just going to add this step to it because this is the easiest way for us to do this. And we save a ton of money in manufacturing costs by going this route. So thank you for your feedback, but we're going to go this way with it. Right? I mean, so I don't know. It's a bummer. I don't know. It's disappointing. But at the end of the day, I guess I would say I'm not especially surprised or shocked by that information. Just knowing what I know about how they pair that stuff. Speaking of plugging things into a console that might not work, Xbox is going to lock out a bunch of peripherals from Xbox consoles. They are in the process of, over the next few weeks here, rolling out firmware updates that will lock people out if they are using unauthorized peripherals. Right now, I guess with the current firmware, they put something up that if you plug in an unauthorized device, it will pop up a message that says, hey, come November 12th, this thing ain't going to fucking work anymore. And the message says basically, using unauthorized accessories compromises your gaming experience. That's a sentence that someone wrote and said, let's put this in front of humans. Using unauthorized accessories compromises your gaming experience. That's like saying, like, if you plug a third-party controller into your Nintendo, it's going to catch on fire. You might die. You get these hoary controllers out of here. Because I love you and I don't want you to die. For this reason, the unauthorized accessory will be blocked for use on November 12th, 2023. For help returning it, check with the store it came from or contact the manufacturer. To see authorized accessories, go to our webpage. So this is locking out, again, when we talk about the Smash Brothers tournament stuff, this is another one of those things that is a huge accessibility problem because you have a lot of people that probably spend a whole lot of money building accessible rigs for their needs that are not necessarily built around the Xbox accessibility controller, which is nice. It's good. It's a good controller for what it needs to do, but some people already built something by then, and now they're going to be like, oh, well, now we're going to have to start over. All of these Brook adapters, like the Brook, the company that makes the Brook fighting stick stuff, they put out an update saying like, hey, we think our stuff's not going to work in the near future, so just letting you know. It's a terrible, we can get into the reasons for it and why we think those reasons really exist, but at first blush, for a lot of people who are using controllers that are perfectly normal controllers that just don't happen to be, because it used to be, and a lot of them are wired. I think the general guards that Microsoft has had in place for official Xbox controllers is they're not licensing any wireless controllers. They've licensed a few recently, but generally speaking, Xbox has always been weird about licensing third-party wireless controllers. So there are a lot of people with totally normal controllers that don't give them any real advantage in video games that are just going to be asked out by this, and I think that's insane. I think them having a thing for help returning it, check what the store it came from. Like, motherfucker, the Xbox Series X, let alone the previous Xbox console, which also used the same stuff, has been around for years. Well, yeah, you're gonna you bought a fight stick at launch of the Xbox Series X or something, and you're just gonna walk in all these years later back to the store and go, "This doesn't work. Can you give me my money back?" They're gonna be like, "Yeah, I can give you something. It's a boot in the ass. Get the fuck out of my store." That's like, so the very idea of like, you're gonna have to try to get a refund. Like, what the, are you fucking high? Are you for fucking real right now that that's a thing you wrote down and put on an error message that you're showing to people? Come the fuck on. This is such a wild, you know, and so let's get into the rest of this stuff is, you know, windowscentral.com was the first place this story seemed to pop up, and they've had some updates and say, we've heard from sources familiar with Microsoft's plans that this may be related to Microsoft expanding its program for approved third-party wireless Xbox controllers. Most Xbox third-party controllers right now are wired. And then yesterday they got another update, including a statement from Microsoft, which reads a lot like the error message. Yeah, okay. So here is the update from here is Microsoft's statement about this issue. Microsoft and other licensed Xbox hardware partners' accessories are designed and manufactured with quality standards for performance, security, and safety. Unauthorized accessories can compromise the gaming experience on Xbox consoles, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and S. Players may receive a pop-up warning that their accessory is unauthorized. Eventually, the unauthorized accessory will be blocked from use to preserve the console gaming experience. For a full list of accessories that are supported on Xbox consoles, please visit our support page, our designed for Xbox partner hardware program page here, and blah, blah, blah. So there are devices that you can hook up to consoles that will let you use a mouse and keyboard in games that were not designed to use them. Like, there are cheat devices. There are controllers and add-ons and weird things that people have built over the years that are, you know, whether it's a macro controller or whatever, like there are things like that exist. And individual games, like it's shooters and stuff like that, individual games have been working to ban some of that equipment in game over the years to try to prevent people from using that sort of stuff. I don't know how they're detecting it or whatever. And so they don't come out and say it. They just say they want to preserve the console gaming experience. And they want to make sure that everything is manufactured with quality standards for performance, security, and safety, because unauthorized accessories can compromise the gaming experience. And they need to come out, like, if they're going to do this, if they're going to have this seemingly large blockade in place, I think they need to come out and say what they're doing and why, and not be ambiguous about it in this way. But we've got to preserve, if they're saying like, hey, we think the Cronus is fucked up and we think people are cheating in games and we don't want it to be used. Or if they're saying, hey, we have actual situations where someone plugged in some weird third-party USB thing and it blew out their USB port and we're sick of dealing with it, or, you know, whatever. But this just sounds like them saying, hey, we've been really weirdly restrictive about our licensing programs for accessories and hardware for a pretty long time, and we've decided we want to make more money on that. And so we are going to expand that program, and in conjunction with that, if we want this racket to stick, we've got to, you know, you can't get the protection money unless you threaten to fucking burn down the store. Right? So you got to be like, hey, Brook Gaming, hey, oh boy, it sure would be a shame if your controllers stopped working. How would you like to be officially licensed and make a nice licensed device for us? How would you like to maybe instead get on the green team and make some hot official Team Xbox controllers with Team Xbox? I don't know, like, you know, how much, you know, are they at a point where they are trying to shake down accessory manufacturers for licensing fees / increase their the sales of official accessories. I don't know. Maybe the people that are officially licensing accessories are saying, hey, like, there's no benefit to us being officially licensed because there's so much third-party weird shit on the market. Like, why aren't you protecting us? And maybe this is Microsoft stepping in to tighten that up as well. I don't know. You know, they're a business, right? They're trying to make more money, not less. So I don't think you can fully discount that as part of this process. As part of the reasoning here, right, is to make sure that attach rate for controllers is going up. Hell yeah. Because people aren't buying weird, funky, wired whatevers off the internet for way less money. I think the accessibility situation, you know, is a pretty rotten one in those cases. I think I don't know what you do there. I also understand the desire to block devices that may allow cheats in online games. I understand the desire to try to lock that sort of stuff out at a system level, at a hardware level, whatever you want to call it. But I think the ambiguity on this statement here is really poor. I think that the Xbox team, I think the Xbox brand has been a lot better at communication than this. They have been a lot more forthright about, you know, hey, here's what we're doing and why, or, you know, especially when it comes to like, hey, you know, the recent stuff with Call of Duty where they're like, hey, we're not using Call of Duty to drive Game Pass or to drive console sales. Like, we're not taking it off of these other platforms. We don't think that's a good move. We don't think that's that. Like, this statement lacks all of that openness, all of that kind of general open nature that they have had with their communication in the past. And I get the feeling that, you know, we will probably have to see some kind of better, more detailed statement out of them about this stuff. If this is how it lies, if it's just like, here's our official boilerplate paragraph that tells you that is not human in any way, I think that'll be a real failing on their part. I think that they need more than this. And yeah, whether the whole like mouse and keyboard adapter thing ends up getting blocked by this, because, you know, some people are just like ripping apart official controllers, and maybe they'll have to go back to that, right? It's like, oh, we'll have to buy a real controller, gut it, take the official guts out of it, and then build another controller around it. I don't know if some of these, you know, devices are being built around that already or not. But I suspect if you want to try to spoof a console with your cheating controller, you probably want to make it look like a real one as much as possible. So I assume you buy an Xbox controller and gut the important bits out of it, and then just hook it up to weird shit on the other end. You know, the old-fashioned way. I don't like this. I think it's really nuts. I think I think there's some form of this that I could understand, again, because those devices do exist on this platform, but they aren't coming out and saying, here's what we're looking to stop. It's just this very, you know, and every version of this statement has come with a link to the official accessories page, which I don't think is a good solution. And again, I think having a pop-up on the console that says you should return it to the store is gross. Not that they need to reimburse anyone who's bought an unofficial controller ever. I don't think that's the, hey, sorry, we locked out your controller. Here's $40. But this is not great. This is a crummy way for them to go. I think that, again, generally speaking, I think Xbox has done really good at seeming human, seeming understanding of the players. They talk about putting the players at the center of their experience every step of the way. This seems like the opposite of that, especially if you're using fight sticks or other things that, maybe on the other end of them licensing more accessories will exist in greater quantities on the Xbox someday. But that's cold comfort for people that have already bought an Xbox compatible fight stick to be like, oh, by the way, get fucked. That's what that message says. It might as well say, like, check at the store. Like, it might as well just be a picture of a middle finger next to it. Try to return it. It's crazy. Again, it's just not, there's, I don't know what the message is on that. I don't know how you humanize that in a way that helps people understand what they're really trying to accomplish. But, yeah, famed, when everybody plays, we all win. You said it, not me. This is not holding up to that standard in its current form. I think there's a way for them to get where they're going that does this differently. I don't know. Again, just a very un-Xbox kind of way to handle this situation, to be like, suddenly there's a pop-up and people have to go, wait, what? I think that's a really, like, this is a person, this is something that probably deserves a person talking into a camera and saying, like, hey, everybody, we understand that, there's a lot of third party. We're running into situations where, this stuff has been, people are cheating in games, people are doing this, people are doing that. We need to protect the integrity of competitive play on our platform, and thus we need to do this. In addition, some of this stuff is shoddily built, some of this is this, some of this, there's a lot of stuff they could get into around the safety of, which is always a very ambiguous, like, road to go down, is like, these third-party controllers, they're gonna kill you. You might get shocked and die, and then what? It's rough. It's rough. Cloud streaming is launched on the PlayStation 5 as of yesterday. I have not been able to try it yet. I've heard good things in terms of its for PlayStation 5 games. They already had some streaming on the platform, obviously around the PlayStation 3 stuff and so on and so forth, but they have rolled that out. I've heard good things. I will try it at some point, but I'm not I'm mostly curious about how I've heard that it compares very favorably to Xbox's streaming stuff. We got an email in saying that the Xbox wait times for the Xbox Game Pass streaming, xCloud, whatever it's called nowadays, that the wait times on that have gone up, and in some cases people are reporting that they've had to wait 10 minutes or more to get a slot on the streaming servers. Maybe that's depending on where you live in the world. I don't which rack is closest to your location from a network perspective or something like that, but that doesn't seem good. Wait 10 minutes to play a game. There's been a closed beta running for the finals that has stirred up a bunch of shit because some of the voices in the game are AI based, which is not great, and also not great qualitatively. And so Embark, the studio behind the game, this is according to Video Games Chronicle. I guess this quote went to IGN. We use a combination of recorded voice audio, I'm sorry. Let me start over. This is the quote given to IGN. We use a combination of recorded voice audio and audio generated via text-to-speech tools in our games, depending on the context. Sometimes recording real scenes where actors get together, allowing character chemistry and conflict to shape the outcome, is something that adds depth to our game worlds that technology can't emulate. Other times, especially when it relates to contextual in-game action callouts, text-to-speech allows us to have tailored voiceover where we otherwise wouldn't, for example, due to speed of implementation. So yeah, that's they also say that their end goal is not to make games without actors. And the finals, if you're not familiar, is a multiplayer focused game, and so it's a lot of like announcer style call outs of like he's really giving it to him from the back. I don't think that's an actual quote from the game. I installed the finals, but I have not played it since their closed beta that happened a while back. This is the competitive shooter that it's some former DICE folks, and it's got a lot of destruction in the worlds and like foam gun type stuff for creating bridges and whatever else. It's neat. The technology end of it is neat. As far as it as a exciting video game, I was not 100% sold on it in that last beta. It was more like, this is a really awesome framework from a tech perspective and really neat destruction and all of that. But we will see. I'm not sure how people are taking to it. I've seen some very positive things that people have had to say about it with this most recent beta. So it seems like some people at least are having a really great time with it. The funny thing here is that no one would bat an eye if this was like Microsoft Bob, whatever, the Microsoft Sam, if this was like a really shitty text-to-speech voice. If this was the accessibility voice coming on and saying, screen shake on, the way a lot of games do these days. If it was like this clearly placeholdery sounding, crappy TTS voice, I think people would go, okay, and assume that they were going to replace it later. But it's not that. Instead, they kind of went the extra mile and put a little work into it. And also their statement makes it sound like that this is their intent for the final product, not necessarily just something that they're doing from, as placeholder during their beta. And they're saying, oh, some of these voices come from people on the team and some of these voices come from this and that. And I guess to that I would say, then just have people on the team say all the stuff. Like speed of implementation is a weird cover, I think, for some of this stuff. Well, at the same time, if you're making a map, like let's say you want contextual callouts, right, that are specific to locations that exist in your map. Hey, he's over by the fountain. Hey, he's upstairs. Hey, he's going down this zip line from the bridge. Like things that are highly specific to, this is something that like games used to never do anything like that. And now we see Halo Infinite is really good. Like it's just at having text. And I think more recently Call of Duty, I think, does this as well in text form, that they've named the individual parts of the map. So that if you're on voice chat, you can say, he's in the cauldron, he's in there's enemies here, there's enemies over by this point. And so I guess the next step from that is you would want the announcers, you would want the characters themselves, you would want like the in-game voice to be able to respond to that sort of stuff specifically in the map, because we're trending away from voice chat in games. Not that it's going away, but we're trending away. The trend is to find ways, and you could say Apex Legends was a big part of this with its ping system. But we're trending towards ways to convey information to players that don't involve you having to listen to another human being. It's like, here's this guy who said 9 racist things, but he's also telling me that there's enemies in the cauldron. What am I to do? Do I turn off voice because this guy's a scumbag, or do I need that contextual language? And so it makes sense that if you wanted specific level callouts in an individual level, that you would look to a system that doesn't necessarily involve recording new human voice. Because then you're not like, oh, we renamed this part of the map and now we need to re-record all this VO. Like I get it from the like time saving aspect of it. I get it from it's good enough for this one weird use we're doing here, but also I get it from hey, you're potentially putting voice actors out of work with stuff like this. Just hire someone on a contract and say, hey, we're going to be adding new maps for the next 3 years. We want you on the hook to do that with an option to extend if we decide to add maps for another 6 years after that. And here's the timetable. Like we need to be able to call you and have you record VO within X number of days in order for our production pipeline to work, and then look for an actor that will sign to that agreement, right? Something that works for your production process, as well as, it makes sense from a human perspective, of like, I might take on other work and might be unavailable for a month at a time. So you need to give me 45 days notice if you need new VO recording for your maps. And then everyone has the meeting to settle on the names, to settle on the VO earlier so that it all happens, easy for me to say, never having worked as a producer on a game, to say like, all these timetables, just line them up, just time box it. It's fine. We'll do a scrum. So I get why the tech solution would make sense of like, hey, technology exists that lets us completely sidestep this problem. And now we can generate this voice. And we have people on the team that have agreed that this is okay and they don't mind if we do this. And so, presumably their voices are not being made against their will. Like, hey, we stuck a microphone over on the desk of this guy in the art team. We think he's got a really good voice. We want to put it in the game. But we don't. I don't think he'd get the inflection right. So we're just going to clone his voice, and we just put a microphone. We bugged his cubicle until we get enough source data to generate a voice. I don't know. It's a conflicting thing, obviously. Like I think that there are some good reasons from a technological perspective as to why this would make your process smoother and faster. But I do think that the inclusion of humans in games, and I do think that the inclusion of voice actors as a part of this industry is worth protecting in a way that this should probably not happen. And interesting that they were called out on it, and all they did was explain it. They could have at any point said, that's a placeholder, game's not done yet. At any point they could have just said that and reworked their process to involve human voice in a more direct capacity. Yeah, I don't know. Again, these are the quandaries of our time, right? And it's very tempting to be hardline on this sort of stuff, but knowing how a lot of this stuff ends up working, and knowing how shitty these things sometimes end up, and I agree with them in general of the, like, you wouldn't do this in a story driven game. You wouldn't, or you shouldn't, because that stuff still sucks. And when it gets to a point where it doesn't suck, that's a different conversation, and we can have that then. But I think in the context of like our weird game show shooter, we just want an announcer to be able to say the fucking name of the map, and we might change it 40 times, and we might bolt extra things onto it, and we don't want to have to fucking account for this whole part of this process. We want to be able to work quickly, and like at the end of the day, the audience demands are more content faster for live service games. For we talk about it all the time. They're like, fucking, Halo needs more maps. These games need more maps. This needs to happen more frequently. This needs to. So if you want to have like a richer voice experience in terms of having that stuff call out more, having more specific VO than like, he shot him with the thing. It's like, what if you add a new gun later? You got to get everybody back in the studio so that they can talk about the gun. With a game like Bastion, you can do that because you've got one person and you've got a confined set of weapons. I bet that they went through a ton of changes, if I had to guess, of like, oh, we changed the name of this gun and now we need to, we decided we hate the name of this gun and we need to get back in the, climb back in under the blanket and record more stuff. But if you're a game that where you're like, hey, we're going to make this game for probably 6 years or more and we only have the first 3 years planned out and who the fuck knows, if this type of thing takes off, we'll do more of that. If this type of thing, maybe we need more guns and maybe we need more maps. Like it's fucked. And so I understand why the process would go this way. I don't think that this is ideal by any stretch of the imagination, but I get why a team would think that this is the way to go. I don't think this is the way to go. I think that they should instead build a process that allows for proper VO recording. It will only benefit the end product. But at the same time, again, like I said, there's if you have a hungry audience on the other end that wants more maps now, and you're like, shit, it's going to take 2 more weeks for us to implement VO on this map. We need it out tomorrow because we've got to move on to the next thing, and we've got to move on to the next thing, and we've got to rebalance this, and we got to, like, the pace of these games is perhaps unsustainable. But alas, this is the situation that this business finds itself in. Not great. Not great. I've seen some talk going around, and I want to bounce this off you. Feel free to write in, and maybe we can talk about it more next week as well. We are getting close to the end of the year. I'm working on a ballot. I'm working on nominees. I'm writing down names of games. I am playing as many games as I possibly can. I'm installing a ton of, and looking to get some time in on a lot of games throughout the course of the year. And I've seen some people say, I believe Axios said this in their newsletter yesterday, that perhaps this is the best year for gaming, or that there's a case to be made. I think the Video Games Chronicle podcast perhaps was trying to have that discussion as well, which I had not really considered. And now I am going back over the list as one does and saying, you know what? Do I think it's the best year for games? No, but I lived through 1998. And so it will be shocking if I personally ever feel like a year was better than 1998. And that's, nostalgia is going to be in there. There's a ton of mix of a lot of different things in there that's going to fuck that up, right? It's hard to look at something like that objectively. It's nonsense to try to look at it objectively, honestly. But 2017 is another one that comes up here and there. But all I'll really say is that as I'm going over this list, I think it's an incredible year for video games. But also I would say that some of the big games that you wanted to hit did not hit as hard as you thought they were going to. And I think once you get past that, I look at it and go, yeah, no, there's some amazing games that came out this year. Also, I think there's some games that came out that were being touted as this massive thing the game ended up being absolutely fine, but perhaps not the biggest or best game ever made or whatever fucking crazy shit. There's like a lot of good under the surface games. Canishout brings up Remnant 2, which I have not played a ton of, but some people absolutely swear by, and I have been messing around with it when I can. And it seems really well built. Someone who kind of, bounced off the first game, Remnant 2 seems like one of those just under the radar games that I think a lot of people will forget about. that stand out. Yeah, Hi-Fi Rush is another great example. I also think this is the first year in a very long time where I cannot remember the last time that this happened. It's not just me saying it, though I'm not even sure that I'm saying it yet, because I have a lot of feelings to work through when it comes to this year in gaming. That said, I think that this is the first year that I can remember, maybe ever, where people have tried to seriously mention a fighting game in contention for best game of the year. And it's not just lunatic fighting game people. They do that every year. There's a somewhat wider swath of people that are going to bat for a fighting game. I'll let you decide which one of the two it is. That's been really interesting to see. And I tend to agree. But yeah, a really interesting year in games. I think there's a lot of stuff that a lot of those games that qualify as that, like, just under the surface. Like, it's not the game that got marketed the hardest or whatever, but like there's some really solid stuff, like a one rung down. I'm not going to call them B games because they're not quite that. Maybe they're the new B game, who knows? But it's kind of there's a lot of stuff like that. You just go like, man, there's some hard hitting shit. Nothing you'd go like, this is definitely the game of the year, but stuff you go like, this belongs in a conversation about it. This deserves to be some kind of, this should get something. This game is good at something. Sonic Superstars, incredible at something. Maybe not. Maybe there's some limits to that. Why don't we move on to a couple of emails here? podcast@guard.bike is the email address. Send in an email to me and I'll take a look at it and we'll talk about it. Write in about your year in games. I mean, obviously, I don't necessarily need to hear your top 10 list or whatever. You're probably still working on it, same as I am. But I'm curious how you feel about the year so far. We're not quite at the end of it. There's still a handful of things coming out, but like this conversation seems to be starting up, and I don't think we've heard the last of it. This whole like best year in games sort of thing. And again, I don't. That's hard for me to sign up for. But as I look at as I've spent a lot of time looking at the year in games and going, holy shit, there's some good stuff. I mean, like I'm starting to see why someone might say that, if that makes any sense. So podcast@guard.bike. Drop me a note about that or whatever. Drop me a note about that or whatever's on your mind. Such as this email from Finn, who writes in to ask about family gaming in a digital age. We're moving into the digital age with physical games going away. It seems like people are accepting this convenience and don't see a downside. They need to figure out digital game libraries for families. I have a family of players, but can't get digital games to work for us. I need a physical library. Anyone can take a game off the shelf, put it in their console, and play it on their profile. That's not how digital games work. Each person can't borrow a different game from a family digital library and play it on their own console. Only the home console can do this on each profile. On other consoles, the game will be locked to the account that made the purchase. Kids are not going to want someone else to mess up their settings. They're not going to want to switch consoles, especially if one kid is known to be playing with messy fingers and getting buttons sticky. It gets more difficult with a PlayStation or Xbox or a gaming PC. Even on Steam, when someone is playing a game from your library, you can't play any games from your library without kicking them off, unless you go offline, and then it's only maximum 2 people playing at once. How are we moving towards digital games, but this issue isn't coming up? Yeah, it's, yes. I agree. I think the Switch is one of those things that has exacerbated this when it comes to families. I went through this trying to figure out the minimum number of copies of Animal Crossing I would need to buy for the 3DS so that my wife and I could play together. and I don't know, I guess it was Switch. It was Switch. And I had to jump through a bunch of weird hoops. I ended up buying her a second copy of the game on her account. And then I think she played it for about 5 or 6 hours and said she hated it and that she was going back to the 3DS. And I was like, yes, I knew I married you for a reason. I am also unhappy with Switch Animal Crossing. And then I went through this in a slightly different situation last week trying to play Super Mario Wonder. I'm over here with the OLED Switch trying to play Super Mario Wonder. My daughter has the Switch Lite that I bought for my wife that she no longer uses on account of Animal Crossing being bad. And she wants to play Mario Kart. But if she loads up Mario Kart and it says that the characters at the end of the list aren't selectable, because my wife, I on that Switch Lite, my wife's account is there and my account is there. If she launches it with my wife's account, the DLC isn't there. We don't currently have a family account. We did for a little bit. We stopped because my wife just wasn't using the Switch at all. And I think Nintendo sent me a code for an individual plan, and that overwrote the family. Anyway, the whole thing. So my daughter launched Mario Kart on my wife's account, and it didn't have Birdo and some of the other. She doesn't even like playing as these characters, but if she sees that, she goes like, this isn't right. You know, she's not happy. And so the answer is to switch it over to my profile, which she can't do herself, so I went over and hit the buttons to do it. Not realizing, and this is dumb on my part as I was doing it, of course it was going to do this, but like the second I hit the button to launch Mario Kart on my account, Mario Wonder shut down on the other Switch. It just came up and said, no, you can't, no can do. And it suspended the game so I could relaunch it and get my, I was right there. It didn't like close the program or whatever. It just kind of prevented me from running it without doing another network check to be like, is someone doing that? So I could have like kicked her off of Mario Kart and done that, but I'm like, ugh. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm just going to not play this game until she goes to bed. So I threw my Switch aside and that was that. That stuff, I get why, because both systems were connected to online services because Mario Kart has online and Mario Wonder also has online. So I get it. It'd just be nice if this was something that was being considered a little bit more deeply. Rights around digital games and who gets to play them when and whatever else. Like the thing they're trying to stop there is they don't want a situation like, with the Nintendo Switch family plan where people go like, oh, I can have 6 people on this account. Let's round up some friends and we'll split the cost, even though we don't live in the same house and whatever. Like they don't want to do that with game sales. The last thing they want is like, hey, we bought 1 copy of Super Mario Wonder and 6 people can play it. So they really don't want that. So how do you solve that problem? How do you allow for a situation where people can play different games on the same profile? Because that makes sense. But how do you do it for what should the rights be? Right? I think it makes sense that like I think that we should both be able to play Mario Kart against each other locally, maybe not connected to the internet or something like that. And there's probably some number of hoops I could jump through combined with a family plan that might make that work. But I don't even know anymore. The purchases and the rights and all that sort of stuff is weird. When you're dealing with like multiple consoles and all who's playing what and when. Like I'm not saying I should be able to buy it once and run infinite numbers of copies of it in the household at the same time and all of that. Like I'm not asking for the keys to the kingdom on this stuff. Yeah, anyway. Could I disconnect the other Switch from Wi-Fi and make that work? No, because I think that that switch can only run my games if it checks online, because the other switch is the main. If I made that my main switch and then made it so the switch that I use is the one that has to check online to play, then maybe I could turn mine. Maybe she could turn hers off. And I don't know. None of it is obvious on any platform. The home Xbox thing is similar, right? It works in a similar fashion of you make a home Xbox, and then the other Xboxes have to phone home to figure out what the heck's going on. Yeah, it's not ideal, and I wish that stuff was, again, a little less hoopy jumpy and a little more straightforward and a little more plain in its error messages and whatever else. Like it's not great. Nicholas writes in, we were talking a lot about discoverability in video games. Like, how do you find the next game you're going to play, and what role can websites or retailers or whatever else play in that? Because the digital storefronts for pretty much every console now are pretty bad. Some of the recommendations that the Xbox store will have are sometimes in the right realm of acceptability. You're like, oh yeah, I see why you would do that. Steam's stuff is a little awkward a lot of the time when it's like, you played 4 hours of this, so we're recommending this. Like that stuff's usually not great. Nicholas writes in, and I was going to get into this. He says, by far the best discoverability tool for books was Amazon.com circa 1999 through 2015 or so. You could just load up the Amazon homepage, click the recommendations at the top, click the books subcategory, and it would just give you an endless list of suggestions. Every book had a I own it button, a not interested button, and a 5-star rating button. You could just go down the list, clicking on star ratings page after page for all the books you'd read, and then reload the page, and it would have an outstanding list of suggestions waiting for you. And then you could get those books from the public library and come back and rate them after you've read them. Yes. So I used to do that with games, because it did that. You could, just like you could do that with books, you could go to the games sub tab and do the same thing of, I own this already. Like, hey, don't recommend this to me because I already own it. I'm not interested in this. And you could also rate your purchases. Or if you said I own it, there was another tab that was like, rate things that you say that you own. And so this was actually the way Amazon did that. It was two things. At first, it was one of the inspirations for why I wanted to tackle this. Because it was like, man, this is good, but it's a retailer. Like, can we do this with some editorial know-how in addition to some of the wisdom of crowds, some of the like, hey, the users of GameSpot, or, back at the time, GameSpot, it was 99, in the 2000s, I guess, is when I was thinking about this more and more. But like that idea of like, hey, is there a way we can do something? And then, in years later, after I was done at GameSpot, it became the reason of like, oh, like you shouldn't, like, don't build it because Amazon already built it and it's good there. So fucking, unless you have, and they have a mass of users that video game websites simply are not going to have. And so they've got access to more data and more this and more that and whatever else from purchases and reviews and everything to try to make that system work. And then they threw it away. Yeah, like 2015, or I don't remember exactly when it went away. But that whole recommendation system, I think, vanished completely off of the website. I think they ditched it for who knows what. Yeah, so yes, that whole thing was very good. That was definitely like, I was looking at that as a blueprint for a starting point of like, the thing I would say is, if it can't do it better than this, then we shouldn't bother doing it. And the thing I eventually realized was, oh, right, we can't do it better than this. We need to just not do this. And that was that. So yes, thank you for writing in. That was, the Amazon recommendation thing was very good for a very long time. Now Amazon's a disaster. Much like the rest of the internet, Amazon's a disaster. I had to buy safety pins the blinds in this room were destroyed by my son, and I have not been able to get to a Home Depot or anything to buy replacements or measure it for replacements or go online and measure it and do replacement. I have not had time to touch it. So instead I was like, I need some safety pins so that I can safety pin these stupid blinds back together. And so I've done that. And the process of finding safety pins on Amazon, it was like, these are 9 different brands that are like, none of these are real words. All of this is a bunch of drop shipped fucking trash. And it's impossible to buy anything anymore. It's impossible to know if anything is any good. Firefox. Hey, you should use Firefox for a lot of reasons, but as a browser, you should check out Firefox on account of they are, let's just call them the least shitty option. Firefox implemented a thing. This has existed for a while, but they have kind of turned it on auto magically, and you can disable it. They're not forcing it on people. But the first time after an update to the browser, I visited Amazon, and this sidebar popped out. And it was like, hey man, you want us to look at these reviews on this page and decide if they're actually written by humans or not? Because we're going to check it out. You want us to check it? We'll check it out for you. I was like, yes, absolutely. Please. Yes. Look at these Amazon reviews and figure out which ones are fucking trash. And then it goes through and it says, okay, here's the updated 5-star rating after we removed a bunch of reviews. This page gets a C because we think a lot of these reviews are fake. Yes, they've integrated something called Fake Spot, which has existed for a little while. But they've integrated it in a very clean way with, I guess, Amazon and Best Buy, and I don't know if there are any other retailers that support it, but it's been fascinating. I don't know that I would call it absolutely perfect or useful yet, but it's a really neat thing to just have Firefox pop out. You maybe need to be on the beta branch for Firefox for this. I don't know if it's in their shipping builds yet, but it's pretty neat. And it'll highlight things from the review text and say, hey, here's a general vibe of these reviews, the ones we've deemed to be legitimate by humans. It's neat. Give it a look. Or yeah, it might only be on the beta branch of Firefox. I don't know if it's actually there yet or not. Mark from the East Coast writes in and says, recently I've been thinking about video game tie-in songs after listening to the aggressively mid Imagine Dragons Starfield song. Has there ever been a tie-in song for a video game that was actually a good song and wasn't just a bland, unlistenable advertisement? Motley Crue's Tribes, the original music from Dragon's Dogma, the Skrillex remix of the Syndicate theme, the Mortal Kombat 10? It was 9 or 10? There was a Mortal Kombat album that was not in the game itself, but had a bunch of just like, fuck it, man, here's a bunch of dubstep inspired by the characters of Mortal Kombat. And Skrillex did Reptile, and that was pretty good. Dog's Turismo 3. Yes, the Gran Turismo tie-in track that Snoop Dogg recorded is quality. But tie-in song, yeah, I don't know. Tie-in song implies that you went out and got like internationally renowned recording artists to come in and provide a song for your game. And so I think that's limits some of this stuff. It's not just like, hey, here's a song that stands out or whatever. But fucking, why are you listening to it anyway? You know, he says, after listening to the aggressively mid Imagine Dragons Starfield song, well, what the fuck did you think it was going to be? It says Imagine Dragons right on the goddamn box. What do you think? This is going to rip. Finally, Imagine Dragons with some subject matter they can really sink their teeth into. Space. I think they're going to really rock it. Imagine Dragons is like fucking... It's like listening to a puddle of wet dog shit. You know, it's like holding your ear up to the ground to be like, this dog crapped right here. What is it? What is it? What's going on over here? What's this sound? What's this? Oh yeah. Oh, this is good stuff. Oh, Makes me long for the subtle ingenuity of Nickelback. Fuck Imagine Dragons. Anyway, Alex from Framingham writes in and says, I don't mean to reheat the old conversation of are spoilers a big deal? But something that drives me crazy is how popular websites are putting, or at least hinting at, spoilers for games on their homepages. Oftentimes, starting from a day or two after a game launches, major sites such as IGN, Polygon, or Kotaku will have headlines like post-credit scenes explained or ending explained, sometimes with a screenshot from the ending or scene in question. Or something like, we need to talk about this insane moment from Game X, while this 20-hour game has been out for all of a weekend. My least favorite is when a critic writes a review and vaguely calls attention to an insane twist before the game is even out. How does this serve a consumer making buying decisions? Well, I'll stop there and say, not all reviews are really meant to do just that. I mean, we are looking at, criticism of a work in full, and I think that you have to talk about a game's situations and plot and story, to a certain extent. And I think that if that, I think sometimes that is very much worth discussing. Anyway, he goes on. I know it's my job as someone kind of sensitive to spoilers to just not use the internet when I haven't played or seen something I'm excited for, but on the homepage, in headlines, on popular websites 2 days after launch, it feels completely ignorant, perhaps disrespectful of those who, like me, care about games media and aren't ad blocking anyone. I hope I'm coming across as respectful, but I am pretty frustrated about this trend and feel the content should at least be pushed off the homepage. What do you think? I think that stories like that, the endings explained, the hey, were you too dumb to understand this thing? I think that those traffic really well on search engines. And they have to be on the homepage for Google to give it the appropriate weight. So you can't just hide it from the homepage. And those stories tend to traffic pretty well because people, for better or worse, there's people who are looking for that shit. Otherwise, they wouldn't traffic well on Google, and they wouldn't, the at the end of the day, we are the broken link in that chain, all the way at the start of it. I think I think it's okay for you to be sensitive on this stuff. I do think that extending that sensitivity to an area where you say even knowing a game has a crazy twist is off limits, I think is unrealistic in a modern age. And I think that stuff, Mortal Kombat 1, I think when their review embargo up, I just finished the storyline the night before. And I was like, you know what? There's a moment in here that's some of the craziest shit I've ever seen. Certainly in a Mortal Kombat game. But larger than that even, And I think some of that stuff is worth talking about. I think that the spoiler conversation is really more annoying, when it comes from covering games. You want to be able to have frank and realistic conversations about games, but not every moment warrants its own separate, we did a spoiler thing over here and we recorded a separate thing that's spoilers and this and that. It's really frustrating to the overall conversation in a lot of cases to have to talk around things and have to be like, oh, there's that thing. Oh, that's actually, I think some of the worst podcast conversation is two people going, oh, did you see that thing? Yeah, I saw it. Oh my God. I don't want to spoil it, but you know what I'm talking about. Oh, you mean the, and then you hear them mouthing some words without saying them. You go, no, the other one. That's it's annoying to have to do that. You know, and that doesn't make for a good listen either. And so I don't know. I tend to subscribe to the theory of fuck it, man. But also, like, I don't want to necessarily be a jerk to people either. So I try to be respectful of some number of people. For example, I did not come out and say what that Mortal Kombat 1 thing is, even though that game is something like a month old. And you can't, someone in chat is saying like, oh, just say spoiler warning, wait a minute, and then carry on. The problem is people don't know when to stop. And so podcast things will skip 30 seconds at a time. And so you like push it 3 times and then hear someone go like pyramid. And you go, oh shit, fuck. And you hit it a few more times. And you go like, it's a lady. And, you know, and then you end up getting like an even shittier word from it also. Or, you know, like it's spoiled in an even worse way, I suppose. But yeah, that stuff exists because it traffics. And we could get angry about the mechanisms that make all of that stuff happen and make all of that stuff have to be put in front of you because they're parts of the internet that are broken. But also there's a number of people looking for it. Some people are saying like timestamps in the description. Like that's, people don't look at podcast descriptions. Like that's not a thing. People go like, well, let me button into let me load up Overcast here and button into this and see what's what. And like people push play and then go ride a bike or drive a car or sweep. You know, it's not a, you know, for video versions, maybe sometimes that sort of thing can make sense, but it's just not, that is not how people engage with audio programming. And so they're not even going to know that there's something they need to skip unless you go out of your way to call it out, and then you're calling it out. And that's even worse in some ways. It's just like there's people don't listen. And so, you know, you could do that and you would still, it would not, all it would give you is some snarky response when people say, I can't believe you spoiled that. You know, because all you would do at that point is say like, well, I tried to warn you, but no one reads podcast descriptions. So the medium is not built for that. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's a good solution to that sort of stuff. And I think no matter what solution you reach for, you will end up, you will never not get the shitty, you will never not get the negative feedback from people on those things, even if you go out of your way to. As someone who's been trying to write things in a lot of different ways and in ways that will appease the largest number of people in some points in my career, and in some points of my career not giving a fuck about that, I will tell you that they will find something to complain about no matter what. And there's kind of nothing you can do about it, unless you're willing to sacrifice the experience for normal humans and make it super shitty for everyone to engage with in a way that just leads people to drop your program or stop reading your thing entirely because you've made it too obfuscated and fucked up and whatever else. There's not a lot of good solutions out there for this sort of stuff. Other than to try not to have that sort of conversation on your podcast of, oh, you mean that thing? Ho ho ho! Wait till people like that's the worst. That's up there with and I've done it over the years. It's happened. It's, you know, it's a thing. But that's up there with to me the like breathless talk about a spoiler right around the time a game is out is as bad as bragging about having a game that's not out yet. The like social post of like, it's why some people go like, some people ask me like, did you get this game yet? Did you, you know, because they know other people have it. And I don't answer those sorts of questions because at the end of the day, it's none of your fucking business. I have a lot of things. Some other things I don't have. I did not get RoboCop because I didn't even realize it was coming out. I had other shit on my plate and I just like, I didn't ask for it. If I had asked for it, I probably would have gotten it. But it's just not. It's not something I do on a regular basis, and I find it, in a general sense, to be kind of aimless. So I did end up posting something about Spider-Man onto Blue Sky. I was like, no one's doing this on Blue Sky yet. I can be the first guy on Blue Sky going, I've got a video game. Because their embargo specifically said, you can mention on social media that you have the game on this date and time. I'm like, all right, but I'm gonna do it on Blue Sky because that's where it matters. God damn it. Anyway, spoilers are the spoiler culture, the uproar about spoilers, all of this stuff. It's all of it sucks. It would be nice if we could just have open conversations about games all the time. I think it would be easier to discuss games without having to tiptoe around a bunch of things. But at the same time, some things are surprises and some things deserve to be surprises. I get it. Like, you don't want to fuck it up for people. And, so, I don't know where the line is because it's a personal thing and it's a personal line that everyone has. And so your line will always get crossed. And so on and so forth. Do I know when Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 multiplayer can be discussed? I can tell you that I probably will not get a copy of Modern Warfare 3 until it is out. If I get one at all, that has been Activision's policy with me for a number of years now, for reasons I won't rehash here. But at some point they stopped inviting me to things and so on and so forth. It was the year that they made it so that melee attacks were not one-hit kills. I remember that. That was the year I went, what? And was incredulous at the concept and then never got invited to anything ever again. And since then, I think that whatever, or the review scores or whatever it is, some combination of all those things. I've heard multiple things, but it's, when you're reviewing on a 5-star scale and you give a game a 4 out of 5 and that goes to Metacritic as an 80, that gets internalized as Jeff Gerstmann doesn't like our games. And you're like, I gave it a 4 out of 5. Most common criticism I get when it comes to those games is people thinking that I'm a fanboy who talks about them too much. But for Activision, apparently I'm a longtime critic of the franchise. Anyway, the very big outlets get copies of Call of Duty early. That was even true back in the days when they would have review events. They would have review events under the guise of hey, it's a security concern. We're not going to send out any copies. We're not going to send out any copies ahead of time. And then GameSpot would get like 10 copies. Or and I assume IGN would get some number of copies. So like, there was just a situation where suddenly it felt like everyone on the GameSpot side of things had a copy of that game at their desk. And you're like, what? So I would borrow one from them and play through it and whatever. Anyway, so yeah. So I don't know. I assume you will not, the servers are not live. So unless they had a separate event for people to go play the game, which they may have, I'm not in that loop anymore, then you probably won't see anything until the servers go live. And because now they're doing campaign early, I think they're actually in a position between that and the beta, I don't think there's much more they need to do when it comes to accommodating the press. I'm sure that the bigger outlets will still get something, and maybe they have already played the campaign. I don't actually know. But I think the way that they're releasing the game now in this staggered, like, get the campaign a week early, but also, you'll get a taste of the multiplayer in the beta and little bits and pieces like that. Like, I think they're rolling out enough of the game now that their whole review, what used to be their review process in the before times, doesn't make as much sense anyway. What do I think of the beta? I liked it. I don't know. It's weird. I think the time to kill changes are different. We talked about it on a previous episode. I'm not going to rehash the whole thing, but I think the beta is interesting in I likened it to like Street Fighter 2 Turbo hyper fighting. It's like a faster, weirder variant of the previous game, if that makes any sense. And I don't know. I'm interested in it. I don't care about that. I know that they have zombies stuff to show. I continue to not give a fuck about zombies. Let's see if we got any more questions here in the emails. Nathan from Ontario, Canada, writes in with a reviews question. In the age of exclusivity agreements between professional sports leagues and video game developers, it's led to the same game being shoveled out year after year without any significant changes. You've mentioned in the past that the job of a reviewer is to provide the reader with the necessary information and rating so that he or she can determine how to spend their hard-earned money. I 100% agree with this perspective, but it doesn't really explain to me why each year's iteration of NHL or NBA or NFL gets a 7 out of 10 despite being identical to the previous year's game and has no significant changes or improvements since NHL 15. So my question is, why don't reviewers start scoring their games lower and lower each year when there are no significant changes? I would deem a score of 7 to be a good score and something I should buy, but why would I when it's identical to last year's release? Outside of ridding of exclusivity agreements and allowing competition in the marketplace, I feel it's the only real way to drive real change in the industry. Because you kind of have to, there's a line you have to walk with this stuff where you have to, you can't assume that everyone played last year's game when you're going into it, you know? Also, I think that it's not necessarily getting a 7 out of 10 every year, and it's not necessarily that there are zero changes. The changes are nominal. It's that the changes are enough to maybe sustain a score without surpassing it. They didn't break it. But at the end of the day, I think you can't always just punish a game for it being too similar to last year's game. And you have to walk that line because you do have to acknowledge, like, this is the same as last year's game, but also last year's game was good and it's still good. It's less impressive because you played it before, but like, and then you have to also account for, like, also there's literally no other game in town. So you do have a situation where it's like, yeah, it's still good. It's the same as last year's game, but what are you going to do? Not play hockey? Those are your options. Or keep playing last year's game with outdated rosters, which eventually will get the servers shut down, which is nasty business, but, you know, it's a business full of nasty business. And so I think you have to kind of have to address both in equal fashion, right? If you lean too hard on it's the same game every year and eventually you're just giving it a 4, like someone who hasn't played those games, if they walk into it and go like, all the text here says it's a good game, but it's too similar to some other game I haven't played, and that's why you're giving it a 4, like that's not useful to that consumer. And so it's a difficult line to walk, but I don't know of any other way to tackle that style of review for sports games, specifically for annualized sports games. I don't know how to tackle that in a way that is fair to all audiences, to all people who might play that game. And so I think you have to address it on the other side of it and say like, hey, you know, this game is still good. It's too similar to last year's game. That's unfortunate. Or the changes they've made in the grand scheme of things, don't matter. That's usually more likely what you're saying, because you're like, oh, well, hey man, yeah, they put a truck stick in this year. But the truck stick's not that big of a deal. Or sometimes they put in a whole new system and it's terrible, and then you've got a clear thing to point out and talk about. Or sometimes they're in a rebuilding year and they rebuild a lot of things, and you're like, this is missing like a bunch of features. Like Madden for a while there, it's just like, hey, we took out. They're kind of fucking this up along the way here. And I think you sort of have to address both of those things and kind of, I think it's unfair to the game to just be like, it's a 0 out of 10 because they've been making football games for the last 10 years or, whatever else. Because at the end of the day, football is still football. 4 downs, rules, all that boring shit. I guess unless you're playing wild card football, that's really the only option these days, right? Which I need to mess a little bit with here. Let's see here. Maybe we can take one more email here. This is also some ancient history. Stefan in Adelaide, South Australia, writes in and says, you ever play that arcade game where you have to finger people in the ass? You know the one I'm talking about. Yes. Yes, I have. Yes, I have played Boonga Boonga. I don't... I was part of the squad that brought word of Boonga Boonga back to the United States because we saw it at a trade show. And we took a couple of pictures, but cameras were really shitty then and whatever else. But Boonga Boonga is emulated in MAME. It just doesn't have the big plastic ass on it. If you did not play this, it is a game where you take you grab it like looks like a light gun holster, and you pull this thing out that looks like 2 fingers going like this. It looks like a pair of hands in this kind of like pointer gun configuration. And then you are to take that and poke this plastic ass with it, which is I suppose it is a Japanese concho, people in chat are saying. That it is something that people do to, like instead of giving people wet willies or whatever it is, they put their fingers together and poke each other in the ass, to which I say, congratulations. And so it's a game in which you do this, and then there's a face of a person on screen who reacts to it. And if you do it just right, you win. If you do it too hard, you have to hit the plastic ass just right. And yeah, it's like a Japanese elementary school thing, like a school kid thing to do. And in this game, I guess the thing is the different characters in it are like meant to be societal pariah. Like it's just like, here, this guy's a sex offender and you need to hit him hard or, whatever it is. And we saw this machine and said, well, we need to go check this out. And it was like me, it was like James Milkey. I want to say it was like Sam Kennedy was probably there. It's probably the 3 of us and maybe a 4th. If I'm remembering correctly. And we played it a bunch. I want to say Milky, it might have been me. At some point we were slamming that ass so hard with the thing that the controller, the little plastic hands thing, came off of the rope it was attached to. And we were like, oh geez, oh boy. And if the people that had made the game had not been right there, all I wanted to do was hump that plastic ass. All I wanted to do was play that game with my pelvis and see if I could win. But I don't think that's I don't think we pull that off. But it's emulated in MAME, so if you want to build your own plastic ass, I think you could try to do that. I don't know. You could play it in MAME. I don't know if the refined analog control is fully emulated properly, but anyway, yeah, Boonga Boonga, BOON-GA twice. Go look it up. It's fun. It's not fun. It's like a redemption game practically. It's barely a video game. It's barely a thing. Anyway, that's going to do it for emails. Again, podcast@guard.bike is the email address. Thanks everyone for writing in. We've got some more emails here for next week here, but it was James who wrote in about the xCloud wait time. Says, doesn't even matter what game you pick, you're met with a waiting screen that can now top 10 minutes. Even when you do get to the end of the countdown, the wait can even extend past that. if Microsoft used this as a way to get their merger through, then I hope this isn't the future they want to give us. Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't sound great. But yeah, anyway. My daughter seems to be on the mend. Hopefully my son won't get sick, and then my wife can come home with the baby and all this other stuff. It's just, yeah, it's man. It has just been it's been a real turn of events around these parts. I hope everyone's doing well out there. We're fine here. It's rough. It's been a rough handful of days here. But we're getting through it. And yeah. So with that in mind, I'm still I want to do some more nighttime streaming because I'm probably not going to be streaming on Wednesdays. During the day until we get the schedule kind of sorted and figure out who's, the my daughter goes to school 3 days a week, though now that she's been sick, that's been, anyway, still figuring a lot of things out. Consider me still partially out on some kind of paternity leave, I guess is what I would say. But I'm trying to fit in some streams at night when I can. With my daughter being sick, she's been waking up a lot in the night, and that's been the priority, as you might understand. But yeah, unless anything fucking crazy happens, should be back here on Friday morning with some hot 8-bit Nintendo games. If that doesn't happen, I will find a nighttime to do. We will rank some goddamn Nintendo games. We will find a spot to do it. Go check that out if you haven't. I played some Super Mario Brothers last Friday, which is an 8-bit Nintendo game that is we ranked it. It's science. It ended up on the list. You can go find it if you want to find the energy drink list, and I'll put the Nintendo list in a tighter, an easier container at some point here. The energy drink list now lives at energy.guard.bike. That'll redirect you to the page that it lives on. If you go to patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann, there's a free post there that includes the most recent version of the ranked NES list, as well as the most recent video if you're looking for a link to that. Otherwise, it's on YouTube. Hey, it's on YouTube. There's a Alan Wake 2 video on YouTube as well. These Nintendo games, all this other stuff. All that and more. Hang in there, everybody. And I will see you next week with more from the world of video games. See you soon, everybody.